work in the steel industry? Like, where did you work and for how long? And
Well, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit of, I'll get to that in a second if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'll tell you a little bit of my life. I was born in the Appalachia coal regions of Pike County, Kentucky, which was back in 1924. And came to Pennsylvania in 1931 because my dad had passed away, left my mom with 5 little kids, and he was a coal miner. I can remember them getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to work, and coming home after dark. They never knew what daylight was. They went in the mine before daylight and come in after dark, come back after dark. And it was non-union. All of them was non-union at that time, and the union started to get active about that time. And my dad had a stroke in 1927 when I was 3 years old. I can only remember my dad on 2 occasions. When they brought him home from the doctors or the hospital when he had his stroke, and sitting in a chair before he died 3 years later. I have no recollection of my father in that time, but he was, I know he was a coal miner and worked for Fordson Coal Company. His pay, well, Ford, while he was working, Ford gave him $5 a day, and they thought Ford was the greatest guy in the world, which he was, to pay them at exorbitant wage, you know.
At that time.
At that time, right.
Was that in that, was it in the company town that you
Right,
owned?
right. We lived in a Ford owned. I did not, never knew what United States money was till I was 7 or 8 years old here after we came to Pennsylvania. Right. My mom and us little kids. And then that was the first time that because Ford had scrip, which was his own money. You went to the company store, you bought everything towards your pay that you had coming. I can remember all this. And he would give you change. We went to the movies, silent movies. Right. We paid scrip. Or it came out of my dad's pay.
Right.
But anyway, we came to Pennsylvania.
Right.
Because I had uncles, my mother had brothers up here who were in the coal mine. We didn't come here for a better way of life. We came here for survival. Right.
Because I guess your mother wouldn't have had a source of income, or did she?
No. We owned a house in Kentucky, and she sold it. And I can remember the mortgage was $50 a month that people owed us, and after the first couple of months, we never heard from them anymore. So they got the house, the property, and everything, and we had no money to go back to Kentucky or to fight it or anything. Right. And she did practical nursing to raise us kids. And then I graduated from South Fayette High School, class of 42. And after I knew I was going into service. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Back in the 30s, the coal mines around here, there was what they called organizers. My first wife's granddad was an organizer for District 5 of the United Mine Workers.
So, like organizer for the labor
unions,
right.
trying to organize. And at that time, I can remember this in McDonald, Pennsylvania. Every Sunday afternoon, the people would gather. Okay, that was a communist influence within the using the unions as an excuse to spread communism, which I'm going back 1931, 32, and which was prevalent in the labor ranks at that time. And I can remember people would gather in a ball field, and they'd back a truck in, and then people would get up and speak. You know, like they were speaking for the union, but basically they were speaking for for the Communist Party, okay?
Right. Were there a lot of people who opposed labor unions because of that, because of the
Oh,
communists?
absolutely, absolutely. There's people that seem to, it got into the movie industry. You've read about, every once in a while, a named star, old star will die, and they'll bring up the fact that he was a member of the Communist Party. That was their way of infiltrating back in the 30s. So anyway, I graduated from South Fayette High School in the class of 42. Somewhere here there must be a picture of me, I don't know.
I'm sure. It's in your book.
But we had a nice class, but we knew we were going to war. We were in war then, but we knew we were going into the service,
Right.
the boys, and which I did, and then spent almost 4 years in the service, came out, and then started to work in a steel mill.
Right.
Well, when I got out of high school, I started to work at Pittsburgh Screw and Bolt, which was a union shop down in Neville Island. Then when I came out, I got a job on the Montour Railroad hauling coal from the different mines in this area, okay? And I stayed there a couple of years, belonged to the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen. In fact, they were, at that time they had a president by the name of Whitney. He was 86 years old, and he went to Harry Truman, who was president at that time, 1947. We were going out on strike, the railroads. He wanted to pull a strike for all the railroads.
Like nationally?
So, yeah. Not just the Montour. Montour was nothing. National. Can you imagine what would have happened to the country if all the railroads at that time, which was a prime hauler of people and produce and products and everything else, coal.
Would have collapsed the country, I would assume.
Right. So Truman asked Whitney what main thing he was after. He says to lower the pension age for the railroaders. Make them 60 instead of 65. Truman says, "How old are you, Mr. Whitney?" He says, 86. He says, "You're not thinking about retiring, are you?" So we went back to work. So then from there, I went to work down at American Cyanamid here in Bridgeville, Union.
Right.
Of course, I wasn't there long enough. I only worked 8 days, and what they do, they pulled a wildcat strike, illegal strike. So naturally, I couldn't go in and serve my probationary period, and I never went back. I went on construction, AFL, Labor's Union, and then I went into the Boilermakers Union, Local 154 in Pittsburgh, and I worked with them for quite a while. And then I ended up at Union Electric Steel in Carnegie on the side of management. I'd been on the union side all prior to that. Then I'm on the side of management. And so naturally everything wasn't kosher with the union. It couldn't be. And although I'm partial to unions, I am basically.
Right. But you had to be on the other side.
Yeah, but I had a management job. I was in charge of traffic at Carnegie plant and the Burgesheim plant, and I'm retired from there.
Right. When you were a manager, what did you do? Like, say if your labor workers were protesting and like they wanted to go on strike, what would you do? Like, did you ever have any?
Well, yeah. I'd try to sit down with them and talk both sides of the issue. Try to, what I thought was trying to talk sense to them, and on the other hand, they were trying to talk sense to me in their eyes.
Right.
So we negotiated. While I was there, there were several wildcat strikes, but never anything that hurt the company that much or hurt the. Because the company was a good company, good to the hourly people as well as the salary people.
Right, so it was stable too. I would say.
They worked 6, 7, 8 days a week, whatever they wanted to do, any over.